which is oh yeah, oh yeah. As a matter of fact, that speed of the drum beat is a brainwave speed.
Really? Just that like that tempo.
Shamanic drumming was probably the first example of brain entrainment to change consciousness with sound. I've done extensive research on this stuff. So you take recordings of shamans pounding drums, it's about this speed, like, hey, 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 5 hertz. That's where you go when you're dreaming at night.
Wow. Yeah,
Those
I love like putting those kind of tones on like right before I go to sleep. It's a good one.
It means we can pound a drum at a certain brain speed, and your brain waves will change from wherever you are and travel to that speed of the drum and lock onto that and change your consciousness in the meantime.
Wow. So do you actually like visually see things differently when you actually do tap into those frequencies?
Well, I mean, it means that we can take you from a waking state, like where
Hmm.
we are now, and travel your brainwaves in a couple of minutes to a dream state where you go when you're dreaming without going to sleep first. So, you know, you're sitting there, but you're having uh, visions and allegorical, metaphorical dream imagery experiences, but you've lost the sense that you're in your body sitting there. You know, at one minute you're having a conversation, the next minute you're,
Just like completely zoned out.
yeah,
It's like, where did it go? That happened like instantly.
that's right. It's like, well, yeah. So it's more powerful. If it was a few thousand years ago and you're sitting in front of a big bonfire with a shaman in a full dress pounding a drum, and you know that this person is powerful and it can change your consciousness, so that helps. Now,
Yeah.
you know,
And I guess also when you don't have like so many other competing external noises, it's like your brain only can focus on like that one vibration and you don't have any of these other like vibrations kind of like going along in the mix too.
and you just described the 21st century,
Yeah. Because it's like I
which
feel like I live in like an apartment complex, and if I lay down on the ground and just put one ear to the ground, it's like you can hear like a resonating like frequency that everything is just kind of vibrating at. I'm just wondering, is like how much is this like disturbing like my sleep and like my everyday kind of rhythms, you know?
well, think a few, 30,000 years ago, our ancestors, when they're out on a hunt, right, in the middle of the, a big field out in the middle of no place, it's like you put your head on the ground and put your ear on the ground, and you can hear the 50,000 buffalo,
That's
and
so
they're like
true. It's
5
like
miles
that
away,
travels like all through the
you know.
ground. It's like that's
So
why like when I see my dog just kind of sniffing around, why their whiskers are there grazing the ground because it's all there to like pick up information. Yeah.
vibration sensors. Yeah,
Yeah.
the root of the hair that is buried down in your skin has got these nerve endings wrapped around it. It's one of your vibration sense organs.
Wow. So like that goes into play more like when you get like goosebumps and stuff like that. It's like all your hair is standing up on end so that it can like almost like an antenna like to transmit that
Isn't it
information even stronger.
50,000 antennas, protein antennas buried right in your
Yeah.
scalp, about a quarter of an inch from your neurons, generating electrical pulses. So the question is, what channel are you listening to?
That's true. It's like what frequency are you
You know,
dialed into right now? It's like what you listen to
yeah,
has like a sense of power. It
exactly.
really
Yeah.
does. Like I feel like even as I've gone through different phases in my life, I've like listened to like different music throughout those periods of time. I can almost like track back my emotional angst like through different periods of time and phases of music that I was listening to.
Music, yeah, music's got a powerful effect on sort of setting the soundtrack of different periods of your life, And there's examples of that in, people with Alzheimer's in a nursing home who are like in a vegetative state. You come and you play the music that they grew up with when they were in their 20s. Like my parents' generation, that would have been Tommy Dorsey's big band.
Yeah.
You know, you play that in the room and bang, they're back.
Yeah, it's like you
And
get
actually you can
transported
recognize who you
immediately.
are. And it's like, it's amazing. The power of music is tapping into these very deep centers in the brain,
Hmm.
very core centers that, control my body processes, and the limbic system wraps around it and is hardwired in together.
Hmm.
Sort of the place where my emotions are hardwired into the autonomic nervous system in the center of my brain that controls all my organs and glands.
Hmm.
It means my emotional states have direct access to control of my organ function.
Wow.
So
Wow. Yeah.
people,
It's like you
people come
can't
in
even like
and
process food like as well when it's like you're not in a right like emotional state.
if you're locked in to sort of a stress state, if you're locked into a sort of a fight or flight mode,
Hmm.
you're out of the mode you need to be into to digest your food.
Hmm.
Right? The parasympathetic nervous system has to turn on, and that directs energy into your gut to digest your food and eliminate toxins. But if you're running a sympathetic response that's stuck in a fight or flight response, the energy's been pulled from your gut.
Hmm.
So you really can't digest your food properly. That's why I recommend that you don't have, heavy metal screaming rock music in your restaurant.
It's like maybe not the best buy for food
Sort
digestion.
of setting things up
Like
to,
since you always on the alert.
yeah, you know, I mean, there's certain principles that you should adhere to if you're, you know, if you've got a head on your shoulders too. But on the other hand, that would explain why everybody in your restaurant is, got face paint on and leather.
It's like you're almost trying to like dampen your body from the vibrations,
Yeah, it's like,
like subconsciously. And it's like I'm just gonna wear all this leather.
yeah. So I don't know,
Yeah.
So what do you want to know?
Yeah. So what would be like, I guess, the best length of time that your brain should be in that state of like a parasympathetic like state for like I guess like the
Well,
proper
basically,
function?
the way the system is, set up, the body is pretty much unimaginably complex.
Yeah.
We've got a certain number of master control systems, right? We've got structure and muscles and organs and glands and meridians and chakras and emotions, and all of those systems are managed by this central system in your brain, the autonomic nervous system, sympathetic, parasympathetic.
Mhm.
But they're supposed to be, you're supposed to be living in this zero stress zone.
Mhm.
Sympathetic, parasympathetic should be off
Yeah.
at zero. It's called homeostasis, zero.
Mhm.
Zero stress in the system. All the energy comes back to my reservoir, and my body is using that energy to work on my never-ending maintenance list. 1,000 things to do. You
Mhm.
know, um, all my systems have to be coordinated and balanced, and so they work together. I have to rebuild tissues. I've got to balance chemicals, and but if I feel threatened, then I have to pay attention to that, because basically, as complex as the body is, there's really just two basic rules. Rule number one: survive at all costs. So if I feel threatened, I have to pull all the energy from all my systems and put it in my muscle to fight for my life, right? I do all these different things. I pull energy from my gut, elimination system, immune system, higher brain centers. I'm in instinctive mode.
Mhm.
Memory concentration doesn't work very well. My adrenals get kicked. My blood pressure goes up. Adrenaline suppresses pancreas. I've got extra glucose to be super strong. And my gut is empty now. So I'm not going to be able to digest my food very well. But that thing is all over in a few minutes, and
Mhm.
then it's back. Energy's back. I'm working on my list.
Mhm.
But let's say that your body was designed for 30,000 years ago. You wake up with the sun, you grab your spear, and you go chase some little creature. And when he sees you and you see him, the sympathetic turns on for both of you and mobilize your energy. Now you're racing around. but that's all going to be over in a few minutes before somebody's exhausted.
Mhm.
Let's say I catch the critter and I'm going to bring him back and skin him and make a stew and pick some berries and make some sandals, and that's my work day. How does that compare to the 21st century workday?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an alarm clock,
Mhm.
and it's racing around, and it's in a traffic jam, and it's a job that doesn't pay enough money, working for a boss that's got the emotional development of a 3-year-old. Does this sound familiar to you? And then it's
Yeah.
a traffic jam, and then it's home, and it's 7 o'clock news watching the world burn, and
Mhm.
the food's got weird stuff in it, and it's preservatives and color dyes, and there's electromagnetic fields coming out of your wall
Yeah.
that are stressing your nervous system. And so you try to get away, you walk outside. Now there's 5,000 channels. There's
There's always
shortwave
something
1 and
running
2.
through
There's
you.
military frequencies, microwaves. Now there's 5G. I mean, this is a marathon of stresses for a body that was designed for a sprint.
Yeah.
So we end up in this impossible situation where we have a whole society of people who are locked into a never-ending fight or flight response as a survival plan to deal with an impossible situation of stresses
Mm.
that the system was never designed for. And I believe that is the ultimate cause of disease,
Yeah.
right there. The ability, and it's actually, that's actually in the literature. That's actually recognized in medical science,
Mm.
but it's in a book someplace on a shelf with dust on it.
In a place where nobody looks.
It's
Like,
called,
we found out the secret, but we're just gonna kind of cover it up with a bunch of
well,
papers.
we found out the secret of all disease, but there's not, I mean, there's
Yeah, there's
not
like
a,
the cure would
you
just.
can't make a buck on that.
We're just gonna put you in this
I
like
mean,
isolated chamber. You can never leave. You're pretty much essentially the
yeah, we're
bubble
not in the
boy.
business of curing anything. We're here to sell happy pills to people. It's like
Yeah.
every month. And if we can get everybody to buy happy pills from us, that would be the ultimate, like,
Yeah, that's the ultimate bread and butter because then it's a system that just keeps feeding in itself.
so I'm in my living room and I'm watching my favorite movie and the smoke alarm goes off. So they prescribe earmuffs. And it's like, well, that's not good enough. I can still hear it. So they have an operation. They remove the batteries from the smoke alarm. And now the fire has worked its way into the living room and is burning up the couch. And I'm getting second-degree burns on my arms. So they're prescribing cortisone cream. It, it's insane.
Yeah.
It's um, it's crazy. And so when
Yeah,
you
it's
do
like that's the
that's
true madness right there.
even my mom, when she was 85, after my dad died, statistics said that she would be gone in a year,
Mm.
but she reinvented herself and did volunteer work uh, and broke that mold. But she ended up with very high blood pressure,
Mm.
and they were having a hard time managing it. So she had 3 different blood pressure medications to manage it, and she always had low blood pressure. So she's mystified. She's going, Jeff, how come I've got this high blood pressure all of a sudden in my life? I've never had high blood pressure before. And I'm going, Mom, that's how your body is dealing with Dad's death,
Yeah.
And she goes, well, I'd be happy to, take these blood pressure pills so I don't have a stroke and don't have a heart attack. I understand that. It makes me feel terrible.
Mm.
So I don't mind taking the pills as long as somebody's there looking to find out why I've got the high blood pressure so we can fix that. And I'm going, Mom, that's nobody's thinking that way. That's
Yeah.
not the plan.
Yeah.
Nobody's looking to find out why you've got high blood pressure.
Mm.
The cure is this artificial pill that's going to artificially lower your blood pressure. And I could see that she even her made the connection. Click. Oh, if the blood pressure pill is the cure for my high blood pressure, then doesn't that mean that I was born with a congenital lack of medication? It's like, your problem, boy, is you were born without enough pills. And right
Exactly. It's like, yeah, we've been evolving billions and billions of years to get to this point so that we could manufacture all of these pills to then sustain us.
I don't know. I mean, in the most ancient texts on Earth, from India,
Mhm.
the Vedas and the Upanishads and the Maraptaba and the Sutras of Patanjali, almost 4,000 years old. Actually, the most ancient is the I Ching from China,
Mm.
5,000 years old. But they talk about this thing, this hypothetical time in the past, before time, when the divine infinite spirit, whatever name you want to put on that, is everywhere and everything and eternal and existing in this infinite state of eternal bliss. And the problem is that bliss has no meaning if you don't have non-bliss to compare it to.
Yeah.
So being in an infinite state of bliss is like absolutely boring after a few
Yeah, because you have no way
trillion
to
millennia.
appreciate
It's
it.
like God's going, well, this
It was like,
doesn't
we'll just
work.
bliss
It's
out
like,
over here.
I need a vacation from Godhood. Bang, here we are. This is what vacation from Godhood looks like.
It's like nonstop NPR.
Let's make everything completely imperfect and screwed up. Let's
just put pollution into everything. Could we do that? Polar ice caps melting. Yes, check.
And they say that, in the beginning was the word. Actually, there's something behind that, which I'll get to. But in the beginning was the word, and my joke is that language hadn't been invented yet, so the joke's on you. What'd you say? What was that word?
What was that? What was that word? Sorry, none of us got that.
Sorry, I can't tell you until I invent language. So
yeah, but bear with me.
But I mean, when you think about it for a minute, I mean, if you know about anatomy and physiology and embryology, where at some indefinable point that none of us exactly know, your consciousness popped into the void. Yeah. It's kind of like just woke up and thought, whoa, who am I? Where am I? And remember, language isn't invented yet. Thinking isn't even invented yet. So you don't have those thoughts. You've got some amorphous
stuff.
Like, wah, going on. Actually, it was an ohm sound.
I feel like you stay in that amorphous
Buddhist, and then the first sound that came out was this ohm sound. And then at some point that we do know, between 16 and 24 weeks, the fetus brain development has reached a critical stage where all 5 senses come online for the first time.
Wow.
Right? And this happens for all of us. You had it happen. I had it happen. Everybody who's listening to this, we all are brothers and sisters of water. Right? We're floating in amniotic body temperature water. We're in a float tank. Have you ever been in a float tank? By the way?
Yeah.
Okay, so you get in this float tank, and you're floating in this body temperature water, and you float high because it's got 800 pounds of Epsom salts. And then they close the lid. You're in the dark, so you're floating. After a few minutes, you're floating weightless, just weightless.
Yeah.
And the brain runs on continual input. So if you block all the input, you're in the dark and you're floating weightless, you've got no sensations, your brain will start to manufacture input. But in other words, you start to hallucinate and get weird, and you're in there for an hour, and when they lift the door off, it's like
what is this? What's up? What's down?
Well, you are not the same kind of ordinary rational person you were when you went in. Multiply that by 9 months, because that's who all we are.
Yeah.
Float tank for 9 months in the dark. No wonder the world is the way it is.
It's like I had this whole entire different impression on what all things were. It's like I
But
thought everything was just goop. I thought everything
well,
was me and I was everything.
so yeah, I mean, but when the five senses come online, I'm in the dark. So even though my eyes are online, I'm not collecting information because I'm in the dark. So my nose or mouth are filled with fluid, so I can't smell, I can't taste. But sound travels through water 5 times better than it does through air.
Mm,
So my whole experience for 9 months, and all of us, was sound and vibration.
mm.
It's the only thing we experienced for 9 months. Vibration against your largest sense organ, your skin, and hearing. So in the beginning actually was the word, was the sound. In the beginning was the sound. And then in the third trimester, when the belly is stretched thin enough, some light can actually filter through and your eyeballs can start to see that. So in the beginning was the word, and then there was light. Because the
Wow, that
people who
just
wrote
takes
those
that into
books,
like a whole deeper meaning.
it's and every tradition has got some version of that, you know.
Yeah.
In India, it's Nada Brahma, the world is sound. Uh,
Mm,
and the whole idea of Om is the original creation of all reality, and on and on and on. There's something behind that. Um, the the concept that when I went to school, we learned about the electromagnetic spectrum, that
mm.
everything in the universe is made of photons and electromagnetism, and the atoms are little spinning positive field and negative field.
Just
Right,
bouncing
the
off of each
protons,
other.
the electrons, and the neutrons, positive, negative, and neutral charges, and and the electromagnetic spectrum. I remember
Mm,
where the frequencies are slow down here, and they get faster and faster and faster and faster. Down here, it's like television and radio, and then it gets speeded up, and it becomes X-ray. And
mhm.
up here, someplace in millions of cycles per second is color frequencies, and then it gets further and further, and so now it's gamma rays and cosmic rays and all that stuff. That's what the world is made of: photons, electromagnetism. But they neglected to tell us that that's not actually true. That there are two forces in the universe. Electromagnetism is one. It's the grand yin yang of all reality, right? One of them is electromagnetism. The other one is sound waves.
Mm,
Sound waves are not on the electromagnetic spectrum. It's pure energy moving through a medium at a certain frequency. It's either moving through air molecules, like my voice is making air molecules move,
mm.
or it's going through water where it goes 5 times better, or it goes through a solid 5 times better than water. That's why you have a sounding board and a violin or a cello.
Mhm.
Um, your body's 70% water, 30% bone. Perfect medium for transmitting sound waves.
Yeah, we're pretty much just like walking satellite dishes, I feel like.
Well, there was this thing, like, well, this here. Um,
Yeah.
just so you know that I'm not a regular guy.
Got electricity running all the way through you.
When I was I hated to go to the barber shop, because when I went there, I had a bad hair day for a month. So I would constantly put it off and put it off, and my hair would get longer and longer, and I'd start, looking shaggy and weird, and finally I'd go in, gird myself for another month of looking like a dork.
So at some point, you just have to accept the bliss that is just
Eventually, I
being.
thought, screw this. I'm just going to let it grow out, and I'm going to tighten a ponytail. I live in California, for Christ's sake. Nobody's even going to notice.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's like,
I
let me
feel like
do
if we
this.
could just get to that place of being, like in
Yeah,
the first like 20 years of your life, it's just like accepting
dude,
the flesh
it's
packet that you're in.
almost to the point where I can tie it up, but not quite. And so now it's like hanging in my face and being weird, and I'm like holding my breath. I'm trying to make it grow faster so I can get the ponytail. But you
Just
always get to,
chanting, doing mantras. It's like, come on, grow,
so I
grow.
would get to this point, and some huge opportunity would show up that I would say, "Oh my God, no! I have to do this huge conference for hospital administrators and blah, 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 blah," and I just can't go with my hair like that. I'm going to have to cut my hair just for this one, and then I'll let it grow out. And so I did that a couple of times, and finally I said, no, no, no. I can see, the game plan. Right, my circle of elders up there, whose job it is to look out for the betterment of my soul. Poor bastards. They didn't know what they signed up
He
for.
just keeps
Oh my
making the
God.
same mistakes.
They're going up, they're up there, they're up there going, let's just see how serious he really is about this ponytail business. When it gets to the critical point, let's throw an opportunity at him and see if he's got
See
a real
how he
resolve.
reacts then.
Right? Yeah, let's get a real resolve. So I finally decided, okay, you guys, I don't care what opportunity you throw at me. I am going to have this ponytail no matter what. So it came to that point where I could just get it into a short ponytail. Some of it would kind of hang loose, The women in the audience know what I'm talking about. Men, I don't know. Actually, I discovered it was the best thing I ever could have done was to grow my hair, because when it got to a certain point, I couldn't figure out how to tie it up with the little band behind my head. And women have grown up with like your buttons on your back. I mean, who does that stuff?
It's a
Who
cruel
would
and
put
senseless
buttons
joke.
on up the back? Some woman-hating man.
Truly. So these are articles of clothing to just remind me how lonely I am. Thank you.
Same guy who invented high heels. I mean, anyway, so I realized I'm surrounded by hair experts, women. So I started asking women, how do I do this thing? And then I had a crowd of women coming around me. I'm going, why didn't I think about this before? I should have done this when I
Diabolical master plan.
But anyway, so I get a small little ponytail. The opportunity arrives. It's like I was expecting this. I knew it was coming. So, screw you guys up there, This one was, I was invited to give a presentation on sound to 50 CEOs and their wives who all worked for this multi-billionaire guy who owned 10 companies they all worked for. And he was going to be there. It was going to, right? And I'm going, oh, I got to cut my hair. I can't go with a ponytail for this thing. And I'm going, no. Didn't you just say? I'm saying, nope, I'm going to stick this through. I'm going to wear the ponytail. I'm going to be fine. And then I put my suit on. I look actually really good with a suit and a ponytail. I mean, I look like somebody, people look and say, hey, is that guy famous?
It's like that. Yeah. It's like, I know. I feel like.
Can I know your name? Can I have your autograph? So I show up at this 5-star hotel, and the people who work for him who are putting this thing on are running around and all nervous and they're having a talk with me and and say, Mr. Anthony is probably going to come up and shake your hand. I said, how am I going to recognize him? He says, he's the guy with the ponytail.
The distinctive, like distinction.
This is an important lesson about life. It's an important lesson about sticking to your guns and stepping forward no matter what, and living your own truth. Yeah. There is a story about the American indigenous people. Who we call Indians, by the way. Yeah. The reason we call Indians, you know the story about Indians, right? Columbus.
Yeah.
Yeah, he thought he was landing.
Great discovery.
He thought he was landing in India. You know where India is in relation to the east coast of the United States? It's on the absolute opposite side of the planet. I mean, this guy took a wrong turn.
We have a holiday for this dude.
He took the wrong turn of all time. And when he landed in America, he thought this was India, so he called them Indians. I mean, come on, give me a break. Then, of course, he proceeded to murder them and kill them and steal their land and everything they own. And we celebrate this guy.
Because that's
But
America for you.
there were these um, American indigenous people that we call Indians. During the Vietnam War, there was a troop of 12 of these guys who were renowned for their uh, mystical supernatural ability to track anything over any terrain, no matter how impossible. And so the Marines wanted these guys in Southeast Asia. Here we are, full circle, back to where,
We're
where
actual
Columbus thought he was landing. Right? So these guys, like all indigenous American original people here, they all have long hair. They don't cut their hair. The hair is very long. And when they got, inducted into the Marines, they shaved their heads. And every single one of these guys lost their ability. It was gone.
Wow.
Absolutely gone.
Wow.
And hair was the key to it. And when you think about it for a minute, there's 50 to 100,000 strands of protein coming out of your head, right? Buried into your scalp with a root, with nerve connections, just a small little distance from the brain.
Yeah. And it's like even that pattern of
electrical
coil
activity
too. It's like it's
is
a very electro like inducing thing. It's like it's
static
a very great
electricity.
like antennae. It's a source of
It's
information.
it's a
It's
source
like
of
you can even see
information,
it when your heart beats,
mainlining
your hair
straight in,
vibrates.
yeah, straight into your brain. I mean,
Yeah.
so there's this. When I was going to school, I remember we're studying cellular biology, and in those days, we were taught that the cells in your body are little bags of water with a little membrane, and inside is all of these little organelles like the nucleus and the endoplasmic reticulum and the ribosomes and the mitochondria and all that, right? Now we know it's totally different. Now we know there's a skeletal structure in there made of microtubules, crystalline
Yeah.
microtubules.
Microtubules, yeah.
Um, but in those days, it was just bags of water with little guys floating around, and we're studying the mitochondria.
Mhm.
So the mitochondria look like a drug capsule. It's that shape, and it's got these little folds inside, and it's the final stage of biochemical reactions from digestion. The final stage where the biochemicals are converted into the basic energy of life, ATP, adenine triphosphate. ATP is the basic unit of life that the cell itself depends on to be alive. And mitochondria is who produces it. And while I'm sitting in class and we're discussing mitochondria, the professor lets it be known that the mitochondria is not us. Mitochondria has got different DNA from us. It's a foreign creature living in your cell that way back 4.5 billion years ago in the primordial ooze, where the little cells are like duking it out for the morsels of food, and all of a sudden something happened. Something big happened where they started combining themselves together and forming alliances because it became obvious that cooperation was a better survival tool than competition. That became the first symbiotic relationships. And the first one of all of them for us was the relationship between a cell that created the perfect environment that the mitochondria required to be alive. And the mitochondria produced the basic energy unit of life energy that the cell required to be alive. And they formed this business relationship where the mitochondria created the energy for the cell to create the environment for the mitochondria in a big yin yang thing. And it's been going ever since. And then it became multicellular organisms and we crawled out of the ocean. And now here we all are, a whole population of 7 billion people on the planet duking it out for the morsels of food.
It's like what happens on the macro happens.
And the thing is, I'm thinking, when is the next big thing going to happen where we all realize that we need to form a symbiotic relationship with ourselves and all of the living beings and the planet itself as a living organism? When is that going to happen?
Yeah.
And up there, they're going, excuse me, you only get free once. Second time, you got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
You got
It's
to
like
earn that.
it just makes me wonder. It's like how much worse are things gonna get before they start to get better? It's like usually that's how it kind of goes. It's this like almost back and forth. It's like we've had
Yeah.
like two volcanoes already go off this
Uh,
year. I'm just like, how many more wake-up calls do we need?
I don't know. I mean, you know, I have a feeling that's the reason why you know, the beings from outer space lock their doors when they fly by.
Yeah.
Because whatever
It's
the
like
heck is going
y'all
on
doing
down
your own
there,
thing right now. Yeah.
whatever's
It's
going
like
on
y'all
down
gonna have to
there,
figure this out. We'll come
it,
visit you in
it
like
might
maybe like a
be,
couple billion years.
yeah, right. Yeah, no, we're not going down there. That it might be contagious. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll park scientific lab on the other side of the moon, and every once in a while we'll send some guys down and pick some samples and bring them back, experiment on them, so we can figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
We
Because
call
we don't
that
want to catch what's going on down there.
we call it abductions, but we're just trying to figure out what the heck is wrong with us. But um, yeah, but you know the this sort of concept that we've lost some deep connection with our indigenous self.
Yeah, I am
And as a
1000%.
species, we've lost that connection that the indigenous people throughout all of history of time of our species have had it, that deep connection, that where you understand in your bones that you're not a visitor here, you're growing out of this planet along with your brothers and sisters in their tribes that you all interact with and give space to and give honor to, like the tree tribe and the ant tribe and the wolf tribe, and they all have their place, and it's all this seamless quilt where we all fit together and we all harmonize it out. But one day the human being said, you know what, I think all of this belongs to me.
Yeah. It's like I think I'm above this whole place. I think
I'll
all of
just,
this was designed for my creation alone, and I'm
yeah.
not a part of it. It's like, what is it going to take to just be of the world again? You know, I feel like we've almost like over domesticated ourselves to the point where it's just like we don't recognize that we're also wild animals, slaves to the moon, and all of that. You know.
We used to celebrate all that stuff.
Yeah. It's like I
Mm,
feel like that's the most disheartening thing about being an American sometimes. It's like that lack of like a sense of like deep, rich culture of the world. It's like we're an
yeah.
immigrant country, but we very rarely do we actually like honor this ground that we walk on, the air that we breathe, and like actually like the animals that we are.
Yeah, our species is weird. I
Yeah.
mean, from a standpoint of anthropology and biology, um, there's only three organisms that exhibit our type of behavior. The other two, aside from us, is a cancer metastasis that kills the host and an Ebola virus kind of thing that kills the host.
Yeah.
It continually grows and grows and grows and grows and doesn't stop. Its growth continues and continues until it destroys the host it's on. That's us. That's human beings. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Population is crazy. You look at the stock market, and if the stock market isn't constantly growing, everybody's freaking out. If it starts to stall,
Hmm.
oh my God, it might become a recession. Oh, I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
um, excuse me, but you can have unlimited growth in a finite environment. And if you want your stock market to constantly be growing and growing and growing, it means you have to have more and more and more people buying your stuff.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
It doesn't
I mean, what's
work.
wrong with this picture?
It's like that's not what true sustainability is.
Uh, so, I
Yeah.
saw some joke someplace where they're sitting by a fire in rags, and one guy is saying, yeah, I totally understand. I totally understand. But for a blinding, wonderful moment just before the world crashed, we had such a wonderful stock option. Monetization was at its peak.
Monopolies were raging
Uh,
everywhere.
um, so, we do sort of the same thing individually with ourselves. We forget. I had this experience. My first 8 years of practice was in Virginia, and I had a house in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and you could get on the Blue Ridge Mountain a drive, which is a state park, 150 miles all the way down into Tennessee and into Kentucky, on the top of the ridge of these mountains, and you can look out on the hills off into the distance, and the oxygen rising from the trees forms layers and layers and layers of blue. Blue Ridge Mountains.
Oh, wow.
That's why I understand now. But you drive on this highway that has been a state park for so long that the animals aren't afraid of people anymore. So the deer are standing right on the side of the road grazing, and they don't even look up. But anyway, so at this one point, the beauty of this was overwhelming me, and I just had to pull off to the side of the road and get out of my car and look at this and absorb it. And while I'm standing there, I had a revelation. The revelation was, oh my God, nature is not on the side of the road. The road is cut through nature. Wow. And I know this doesn't sound big, but it was a huge moment for me. It was like, oh my God, my perspective did a 180, and I just got something deep about the way things, really are. And on the heels of that, I had a second one, which was, oh my God, who I think I am is my road cut through me.
Wow.
That I'm in my head all the time with this stupid personality of who I think I am that has been loaded into me from society and from all the experiences I've had out here. But my indigenous self, the part of me that knows how to grow my body out of 2 cells and differentiate the tissues and make it all run on automatic under the hood, I don't have a clue. This is who I think I am.
Yeah.
I got news. You take one of those magic mushrooms, and pretty quickly this part disappears, evaporates into nothing, and who's left is this big mind part of you. And that part of you knows that you're deeply connected. It knows that you grow out of the universe. There's no question that's not answered. It's all right under your nose. You're in a state of astonishment that you could not have seen it. It's just right there in front of you, the answers to everything. It's all there. The sacred geometries and the proportions and how it all fits together and how I'm not a visitor here. I belong here deeply. So when we lose that, we lose our connection with the basic organic life force that is required to be healthy. And in a deeper sense, that is required for me to be healthy in my soul, healthy in my spirit, healthy in who I truly and really am. I think that's what, sound has been used in every culture for that purpose. It's when you go and explore all these different cultures and you see how every single culture's got some sound tradition of some kind, right from these Tibetan bowls and shamanic drumming practices and chant and Chinese meditation gongs and didgeridoo and on and on and on and on. All of those, every single one of them has got to do with waking up, not healing. Healing is sort of the door prize. When I've lost my search for the meaning of my life, of why I'm here, what this is all about for me, I lose that search, then I'm in pain.
Mm.
I'm sick. To me, that's where illness comes from, is my disconnection from the universal life force and my purpose here, why I'm here. If I'm not on that journey, I may not know the answer to that question, but I better be at least looking.
Mm.
If I'm not engaged in the search, then I'm on the side path someplace in a circle where, I got a job instead. It's, and there's this interesting thing in this sort of sound technique that I have, where I have this fancy schmancy medical monitor that I had made for me. It's called heart rate variability. It's a gold standard in modern medicine for its ability to predict death by disease, particularly heart attack.
Wow.
It measures heart information. So you put these sensors on your wrist and it collects the electrical information from your heart, the boom, 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 and it measures the space between each heartbeat in microseconds. And there's an international standard. You have to collect 190 heartbeats. So everybody's on the same page. But the bottom line is that it turns out that the more uneven the space between each heartbeat is, the more healthy you are.
Really?
And the first time I heard that, I thought, that doesn't make sense. It would seem like the more perfect, the more healthy, right?
Yeah.
However, the more perfect they are, the more metronome-like they are, with very little change, becomes this super accurate predictor of death by heart attack.
Really?
And that's called high variability versus low. If you have a high amount of variability where each beat is very much different than the one before, high variability, why is called heart rate variability, right? The more variable, the more healthy. The less variable, the less healthy. After I started thinking about it, I started to see how that is in nature in general. 30,000 years ago, which is what your biological system was designed for, wasn't designed for this, right?
Yeah.
The biological system is designed to make slow, gradual, adaptive changes over generations in response to gradual planetary level changes that are happening in the environment over time, right? The ice age is coming and the ice age is retreating, and right, that kind of thing. But the last 200 years has been insane. I mean, since the Industrial Revolution, we've made more changes in the last 200 years than we have in the last 2 million. The body's going to need another 30,000 years to adapt to what's happening today. Right? So, thus everybody's got this fight or flight response rolling all the time to bullnose your way through and somehow figure out how to survive in it.
Yeah.
But if you think about it for a minute, 30,000 years ago, when I woke up with the sun, I had no idea what this day was going to present to me. Every new day was completely different. From hour to hour, minute to minute, I had no idea what was going to take place. Now, in the 21st century, every day is exactly the same. Alarm clock, traffic jam, stupid boss, not enough money, traffic jam, home, dinner, 7 o'clock news, sleep, alarm clock. And when I'm at work, it's a cubicle. I mean, it's like...
Yeah, it's like you're putting
standpoint,
yourself into more and more boxes.
You're putting yourself into the metronome of low HRV. You're putting yourself into a death sentence by having no variability in your life. The less variability in the heart, the more you're going to die. The less variability in your life equals the same thing. It's like you have to wake out of the stupor and realize that everything around you is immediate and different. I mean, walk outside and take my shoes and socks off and put my feet in the grass.
Yeah.
I
It's
suggest
like, so what if you step in
I
dog poop,
suggest everybody do that.
Yeah.
Revel in the dog poop coming up between your toes. I mean, I don't know, whatever, but
Yeah, exactly. It's warm and
be
cooling.
in the grass. And then when you get on your hands and knees, you look down there in the grass and you part some of the grass, you see that there's this flippin' little world down there.
Hmm.
There's like little dirt trails with little pebbles. But from the standpoint of an ant and some little bug, those are giant boulders with 300-foot tall grass blades going up into the sky. And who needs to land on another planet, for God's sake? I mean, you know,
Yeah.
the interesting thing that leads to, back to my breathless revelation in cytology class with the mitochondria, was to realize that, there's more than one mitochondria per cell in your body.
Mm.
And in some cases, there's tens of thousands of mitochondria in a single cell. In your heart, for instance, talking about the heart is like beating all the time. So it has to have huge amounts of energy.
Yeah.
So those cells, heart cells, have huge numbers of mitochondria to produce enough ATP for this continual contraction for 80, 85 years, right? That means that when you add it all up, and now you add up the new information about the biome in your gut, 25,000 species of bacteria that have different DNA than you. That's not you down there. That's not you down there. Those are foreign creatures living in a symbiotic relationship with you. And they communicate to your brain through the vagus nerve. Some of them generate electrical impulses just like brain neurons. The brain and the foreign creatures in your gut are actively coordinating and communicating with each other all the time. This is heavy duty stuff. You have little creatures that are infinitesimally small who live their entire life in your eyelashes. Say what?
Oh wow! It's like there are so many helpers in your entire existence and your entire being that are rooting for you to just.
So where I'm going with this is the cellular makeup with your DNA that you identify your body as is a distant minority of 1 to 100. There are 100 times more other creatures with different DNA that host on your body than there is your own cells.
Wow.
So there's already this huge, unbelievable, multifaceted, multi-creature organism that is you and me. And we are the minority. And who's to think that who's talking to you now is even the host? Maybe it's the mitochondria who've got the brain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy how we can be strangers in our own bodies to our own bodies. And I feel like that's like what a huge thing is about like the education in this world almost. It's like we're not educating ourselves on ourselves as much as we are.
Another interesting thing that I found about mitochondria is the mitochondrial DNA is only passed by the mother, not by the father.
Really?
So all the DNA in your body is passed from your mother's 23 chromosomes, not your father. So when you think about that for a second, there's actually an industry. There's a whole pie wedge of scientists who try to figure out a human family tree, right? Mm-hmm. Well, by doing something called mitochondrial DNA genetic tracing, you can trace back the true biological family tree, which goes only through the mother's side. The father's side is based on last names. That's baloney. That's a smoke cloud. It's got nothing to do with anything.
It's like, that can't tell us any information. It's like, what is this? Noodle soup?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the biological family tree is passed by the mother. That's where it's really at. And when I was you know, another one of my little mind blowers in cytology class was when we were talking about chromosomes themselves, right? The X chromosome and the Y chromosome. You remember that? You strip your brain all the way back to high school, right? X chromosome and Y chromosome, and the X is the female and the Y is the male, right?
Mhm.
Take this: the X is the default chromosome. Female is default. The Y is the X with one of the twigs broken off. So the twig breaks off, and now we've got a Y. So actually, it's not that Adam gave a rib and made Eve. Eve broke a rib off and became Adam.
It's like it's all backwards.
It's all backwards. It's like, you know, there's man and there's womb man.
Yeah.
So womb man came first, and you know,
The womb had to be like shut off to create the man. So
it's all ass backwards, you know, like most of the world, you know.
yeah,
the
truly,
focus on
like
you,
most of the
uh,
world. Well,
uh,
thank you so much for sitting here and talking with me. This has been completely eye-opening and so profound.
yeah. So just, you know, have more reverence to your hair now.
Yeah. Honor it more.
Which means even your eyebrows are probably picking up stations somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean,
This whole thing is just one big satellite dish whipping around.
anyway, yeah. So just pay attention to what channel you're tuned into.
Honor those small things, truly.
So it's
Is
been a
there
pleasure.
anything else that you'd like to leave us with? Anything else that you're working on that you'd like to share?
Well, my life is a life of triage. I have, you know, 5,000 incredible projects on the shelf, time to do 3 and money to do 1. So my whole life is triage. Which ones
Yeah.
do I not be able to do right now? You know,
Yeah.
but I'm working on it. It can only be done with a symbiotic relationship with a whole ton of workers.
Yeah, a whole team of
Who I
people.
align with and delegate to. And, you know, the universe doesn't get the most bang out of the buck for just me trying to do everything.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
there's a
That's
lesson
usually
right
when
there
the
for
most
everybody.
stress comes, right?
It's
It's
a
when
good
you
lesson.
build that bigger boat.
It's a good lesson for anybody. So
Yeah.
none of us are in this
Well,
alone. We're all in this together. You know,
consider
it's
yourself
like,
having another shipmate, okay? So if you ever want to
well,
throw me delegating this way.
somebody said we're not in the same boat together.
Yeah.
We're in the same storm together.
We're in the same storm.
But we've all got different boats.
Yeah. So we keep crashing into each other.
Yeah. So a little navigation might help. Hopefully, we'll do better than Christopher Columbus did.
It's because we're navigating with compasses instead of our hair, right?
Maybe we should be compassing with our hair.
Yeah.
All right. So thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you so much
Yeah,
for
you're
being
welcome.
here. Have
I'm
a great
signing off.
evening.
You too.
Bye.